11 plus deep lessons from the book you want everyone you love to read. Number 1. One of the mistakes I see people make is that they treat online dating like shopping, scrolling and swiping to find the perfect person, like they're searching for the perfect pair of jeans. I'm sorry to say that the perfect person is not out there. I advise the aforementioned gentleman to try to keep an open mind and embrace more of "I don't know" and less of being sure of what people are like and whether he'd get along with them. Put judgment to one side. People can smell judgy a mile away. Avoid putting people in boxes, and anyway, your type might not be your type. It's hard to make a commitment in these times of internet dating because we have an infinite amount of choice. When we decide on something, we also end something. Side comes from the Latin cadere, which means to kill or strike down. And committing to a person means cutting off the possibility of other choices. It is natural to want it all, but to have a relationship that can grow into something means saying goodbye to the possibility of other people. Naturally, people do not want to make a wrong decision, but this fear of making a mistake may mean they stay on the fence. Number 2. When people first come to therapy, quite often they just want to talk about other people. What I tell them is that we can't do anything about other people, but we do have the power to control ourselves. Many of us don't understand we have that power. We can change how we react and how we respond. We can change our priorities, our belief systems, our habitual responses. Change takes time and new habits take a while to build up. But we can experiment with change, knowing that we have so much more power over our life than we realize. In particular, we have power over our own mind and where we want it to go. Even when we are at our most powerless, we still have the ability to choose how we think, how we organize our body, and how we relate to others. Sometimes we might ask ourselves the wrong questions. We are forever asking, why? Because we are meaning-making creatures and we crave narrative. Why did so-and-so break up with me? Why is my child misbehaving? Why do I feel so unhappy? The emotional charge is all wrapped up in why, because we love stories and we love explanations. But asking yourself why is never usually very useful. The solution is normally in the how. What I'm interested in is how you are making yourself feel the way you're feeling, how you love, argue, change, and find contentment. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, you probably will not see us again. If you have, congratulations, you are growing every day. Number 3. Feeling connected to others is a part of being human. We need connection not only to other people but also to ideas, objects, and our environment. We want to feel that we're a part of something, whether that comes from meaningful conversations, small talk at the bus stop, reading a book, or watching something on television. This is partly why we are addicted to our phones. They give us a sense of connection that releases low levels of dopamine, the feel-good hormone. However, if the only type of connection we have is via a screen, there is a chance we may begin to feel depressed, as we need more active ways of connecting where there is mutual impact between us and another person. If we are underconnected, our mental health suffers. We want people in our lives who make us feel good, and we need people who support our current view of ourselves to confirm our identity. Connection matters because the people in our life are like mirrors in which we see ourselves. How others respond to us works as a sort of system of checks and balances for our mental health. In order to connect with people, we need to use our courage to open ourselves up, share our vulnerabilities, and take care of others when they do the same. To really understand another person and to be understood, we don't have to be the same. We don't have to have the same feelings, or lack of feelings, the same label, or even hold the same opinions. But we do have to be willing to make ourselves vulnerable, to share how we experience ourselves and our world, our responses, feelings, and thoughts. We do need to be open to being impacted by the other person in turn. What is important is that we get close to understanding how someone feels and feel for them, and be felt for in turn. Number 4. Often how we form connections in the present is influenced by how we were loved in the past. We seek partners who make us feel the same emotions we felt when we were around, the people who brought us up. Sometimes people say love feels like coming home, like coming back to what is familiar, from a time even before words could explain that familiarity. The trouble with what is familiar in this way is that it feels right. When we meet someone who evokes these feelings, it can feel like a spark because we confuse what seems like good chemistry with what is familiar. It's important to note that no one chooses their style of attachment. How we form bonds is an unconscious process, nor is anyone stuck with their style forever. When you become aware of it, you can choose not to be at the mercy of it. Did you have to work hard to get the approval of a parent? Did a teacher you had a crush on withhold praise? Have you had a pattern of falling for unavailable lovers, those who lived abroad or were already married? If you find yourself in patterns of unrequited love, I want you to think about your longing. When you are in it, you are your longing. Your longing is you. Take a step back from it. Look at it in a detached way. To move on, what you'll need to do is recognize that your type is not your type. Your type of partner isn't the avoidant type who will give you these highs, followed by lows, but someone who is reliable, available, and dependable. This is what we call a secure attachment type. And it won't be love at first sight, because they won't seem familiar in the way an avoidant person would be, but they're reliable. You won't get such highs, but you won't get the lows either. And over time, as you become more familiar to each other, you will slowly climb to a steadier high, built on the satisfaction of being in each other's company rather than the heady excitement of intermittent positive reinforcements. Number 5. I think many of us can relate to his situation. We've met someone we enjoy being around now, but aren't sure whether they are the one we want to spend forever with. Society can often burden us with a board game of goals and milestones that we are supposed to reach by certain ages. Now, this might be the best way of living for a lot of people, but it is not the only valid way to approach existence on this earth. We are allowed to enjoy ourselves in the present rather than predict the likelihood of being or not being with someone in the future. It is unfair, and yet so easy to fall into fantasies of what may or may not happen, what we may or may not want, or what the other person may or may not do. If you're in a situation where you have friends and family who are confused by your choices, I want you to know that it's good to listen and take it seriously when the people we are close to challenge us. And compatibility is important, but it is also okay to enjoy yourself in the moment. Take the time for things to run their course and to discover what that course will be. It's important to remember a person is not just their prospects or their appearance. A person is a soul. Having the capacity to be happy, knowing how to have interests and friends, and connecting with someone else is worth a great many accreditations. Number 6. A sexual relationship can so often be about status in one way or another. What I mean is that a relationship can fall into a destructive cycle and become more about who has the power than it is about mutuality, support, and enjoyment. If we're not careful, what was a close relationship can descend into who's best. In some way, these things are not often talked about or acknowledged unless you are psychologically minded. And in a couple, it can be very complex. There's often work to do in terms of the boundaries each person needs and where compromises need to happen. I do believe that someone who doesn't want to have sex shouldn't be pressured into it. We cannot reason with someone about not wanting to have sex. Yes, this might be heartbreaking and frustrating for their partner, but we are each responsible for caring for our own bodies and discovering what we each need. Number 7. While connection to others is a fundamental human desire, it's also important to have our own interests so we can get our sense of self from things we enjoy and not just who we are to others. This is particularly heightened with parents. Being a parent or a sibling or a lover or a friend isn't being just one type of person. None of us is set in stone. Humans are more flexible and changing than that. Any healthy relationship between two adults means supporting each other to find fulfillment outside the relationship. If the caring and support is only going in one direction, it doesn't look like a mutually loving relationship. It looks like one person in the relationship is being a martyr. I'm here to tell you, don't play the martyr. You can be ambitious and strive for what would fulfill you, and you can even do that and stay in a happy partnership. Number 8. In the middle of an argument, it is easy to see ourselves as being the goody and the other person as the baddie, and then we naturally select the evidence to fit. We intensify our feeling of dislike by cherry-picking the evidence that backs up our hunches, and we rant to people who validate our point of view. This makes us feel right or even self-righteous, and thus we construct a negative lens through which to view the other, making them into the bad guy. This game of me right, you wrong is something I see play out in many different situations, from parents going through a divorce to disagreements between coworkers, from couples navigating household chores to friendships that have turned sour. Number 9. Often we can fall into the trap of interpreting behavior by what it would mean if we did whatever the other person is doing. Someone else's behavior has a different meaning from what it would mean if you did it. A practical way of doing this is to take time to imagine what it is like being the other person, to have had their life and their upbringing, and appreciate the things they have made from that. Sit in a chair the way the person you are arguing with would, and try to imagine yourself in their body. How does it feel to sit like them? And then imagine you sitting with them. It can help to get into the role by saying, I am the other person's name. I'm sitting with your name. How do I experience my body? Imagine what it is like to be them, and how they must feel, and then feel with them. When two people take up polarized positions, both need to exercise some give and take to come to a compromise. It's not always easy. Accepting people isn't always easy, but it is the only path forward. Number 10. Trying to win arguments through facts and logic is unhelpful and pushes everyone into a harmful game of right and wrong. Instead of judgment and victory, try to build understanding and empathy. We can change how we react to others and see what happens, or we can leave. If we choose the former, firstly, we have to learn how not to persecute. We can ban ourselves from using certain phrases, such as you always, you are, you should. In other words, we can speak in I statements, which define our own experience, and not you statements. Avoid using words like should. Say how something makes you feel and then say what behavior you would like instead. This habit will help you take responsibility for your response rather than blaming the other person, and will lead to a conversation that is less combative. Number 11. We don't have to have it all worked out before we start to talk. Sometimes we only find out what we are feeling, or what we know, in conversation with others. There's a reason the phrase, it's not what you say, it's how you say it, is commonly used, and that's because it is a well-observed phenomenon. The wonderful thing about being considerate of how you communicate is that it is something within your power. You are not in control of how people act or behave, but you are in control of how you choose to talk to them about it. The question of how to strike a balance between too strict and combative, or too easygoing and lax, is something that comes up particularly when it concerns professional conversations and relationships. There is a difference between taking responsibility for your response and being aware of your role in the dynamic, and becoming a people pleaser. Number 12. In order to know what direction we need to take in life, we need to work out what we're feeling. From understanding our feelings, we can then work out what we want. And when we know what we want, we can go after it. Sometimes when we are at a crossroad, we freeze as we fear making the wrong choice. It feels like we might avoid mistakes if we don't make decisions. But not making a decision is still a choice, and it may, like other choices, be the wrong one. I believe it is impossible to really know whether a choice is the right one without hindsight, and none of us has that. Mistakes and failures are necessary in order to grow. In psychotherapy, we sometimes call them another bloody fucking learning opportunity. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, you probably will not see us again. If you have, congratulations, you are growing every day.